Hello, I'm Jonathan Clogston-Wilmot. I'm an acupuncturist and I've been practicing in Edinburgh for 38 years and before that in London. And I've learned a great deal about these ancient ways for health, and I want to share some of that with you to help you live a healthier life. And today I'm going to be talking about phlegm after eating. This is the catarrh, the sputum, the spit, the yuck that you get down your throat or up your nose or down in your chest, which stops you being able to perform your life properly. It makes you spit, hawk, expectorate, all this stuff. And why do you get it and how it happens? That's what I'm going to explain to you now. So let's just remember there are different kinds of phlegm. I'll talk about two of them. One is the sort of wet, watery, runny stuff. Looks like egg white before it's been cooked. And at the other extreme you have the yellow, thick, dark stuff, much thicker, more pellet-like or blobby or lumpy. So let's take just those two types, because there are basically four reasons why you get this. I'm going to talk about two of them. I've got a page on phlegm after eating which tells you much more about this, and I also wrote a book about it, so you're welcome to have a look at that as well. But let's take just these two things and I'll explain two of the ways it happens. One is what I call nutrition. That's the food you eat. What you eat has an effect on your health in lots of different ways. And in particular, certain foods affect certain parts of you. Certain foods are cooling, others are warming. Intrinsically, that means. In other words, if you take that food and you were to warm it up, it would become more warming, or if you cool it down, it would become more cooling. But certain foods have in themselves the effect to be warming or cooling. So let's take meat. Meat on the whole is warming, whereas vegetables and fruit are cooling. That's why we have fruit in summer. Meat dishes on the whole are warming. So if you eat a lot of meat, you will tend to have a warm metabolism. You will get warm more easily. Whereas if you eat a lot of fruit or vegetables uncooked, you'll tend to get cold. So the temperature of the food itself doesn't make so much difference, although you can affect it for heat or for cold by what you do with it. Nevertheless, the food itself is either warming or cooling. Here's an example. Let's take oats. Oats are a Scottish food formed into porridge. Oats grow all around the world, but they're especially known for being warming. Now, oats themselves are slightly warming, but you can make them much more warming by cooking them properly, turning them into porridge. So on a cold winter's day, when you perhaps are not warmed up properly, take oats in the form of porridge and it will have a warming effect to you and give you good energy through the morning, good blood supply, you'll feel alert and well. On the other hand, if you took oats in their raw state, which you might do in winter in the form of a muesli, they are more cooling, they take longer to digest, they won't be so effective in your blood and for your health and your energy until they've been warmed up and cooked, so your stomach has to do that. So the food itself makes a difference, but also your digestion makes a difference. What in Chinese medicine is called your spleen and stomach, they have an effect on how well you cook and digest the food. And some people have warm metabolisms and some have cold metabolisms. I myself tend to be somewhat cold. So I prefer to eat warm foods. Whereas if you have a very warm metabolism, that's to say perhaps you have very warm hands all the time, you tend to get rashes, you tend to get hot all the time, you wear less than most other people, then probably you have a warm metabolism and you would be better taking slightly cooling foods, because then your body is not pushing too far over to the right side, over to this side, and by giving that the foods you eat will tend to be too hot. So you want to have, if you're a hot metabolism type, you want to have slightly cooling foods, whereas if you're a cold metabolism type, you want to have slightly warming foods or foods which have been warmed. So there are the two things. The food itself can be either cooling or warming. We have a page of hot foods, we have a page of cold foods to tell you which foods tend intrinsically to be like that. But we also have your digestion, and that depends on your metabolism, how warm your stomach is. And if you have a hot metabolism, then probably you would be safer eating cooling foods. Whereas with a cold metabolism, I personally am better, more healthy, feel better in myself eating warm foods. So that's about phlegm after eating. Remember, it's the same as mucus or sputum, catarrh, all these are different words for the same thing. If you get that after eating something, maybe you should have a look at my page on phlegm after eating and have a look at the cold foods and the hot foods and see what effect, by making small changes yourself, you can have on your health. because I'm convinced you can make a big difference.